it's important to kind of draw, to recognize that the old paradigms are kind of over. So the kind of teacher student thing is over. The the guru thing is over. All that is over. Everything's moved really fast now. And um, I heard somebody saying recently, I think it was a quote or something that Thich Nhat Hanh had said about that the next Buddha is the community. And I think there's something about that, like that it won't be a person, it's the community. There's something about that. I like that resonates or rings true for me. Because like I've been having this thing of like, the time of the gurus is over for a long time. But also that the the dynamic of teacher student, that's finished as well. Like it's or certainly what I'm doing here is I'm not doing any kind of teaching. I'm really just sharing. I don't know what does that. My camera just went off. I'm really just sharing my perspective. Like this is how it is for me. That's all I'm doing. That's all I'm saying. Now that's a very difficult thing to do, because we're very geared up for teaching. So it's hard for me to keep bringing it back to me because it's very easy to start talking about you and this when really I don't know what's going on for anybody. I only know what's going on for me. Um, and then it's also very hard when I'm listening to people, because there's loads of people on YouTube who are, teachers, and they've got things to say and they have great things to say. And I get a lot out of them. But I have a part of me that wants to slip into student mode and kind of, tell me, answer my questions for me. Like, or do, join the dots for me. And that time has passed because everything's moving very fast now. So like I was saying, like what was true yesterday may not be true today. And what was who I was last week is definitely not who I am this week. So it changes very fast. And I certainly feel I've got to be very nimble. I've got to be really nimble and really let go, keep letting go and moving and letting go and moving as things are changing and evolving. So I've been thinking a lot this week about how limiting words are, for expressing how, like, my sense of things. I was thinking about, as I've said before, like my spiritual teacher, my spiritual master, and I'm using that because that's the way he described himself, was Barry Long, an Australian fellow. You can look him up on the internet, on the Google. And I was talking to somebody who was very close to him one time. This was after he died, I think. Yeah, it was after he died. And they were saying, they were walking along the beach with him. And it was a beautiful day, and there was a beautiful beach, and the waves were crashing, and it was all lovely. And Barry turned to them and said, it all just seems so real. And what struck me about it was that this person was just really kind of dumbfounded, or like they were really in awe of this statement. And to me, it was like really obvious. And it was kind of sad that someone who'd been so close to Barry hadn't, got it. Like, to me, that was pretty basic. It was pretty. I don't mean to be snobby about it, but it was pretty obvious to me that it, on one level, like if I'd been walking along with Barry and he'd said that, I would have been like, yeah, right. I wouldn't have been like, oh my God, that's so profound, and I can't see that, because to me it's really obvious, right? And that was, it was like that. Well, it feels like it's the limitations of language, because I've been thinking about inside and outside and in front of and behind, which seems like, well, that's really basic, that's really obvious. But as we'll get into now in a minute, you'll see like how quickly those words become sort of turned in on themselves. So just keep all that in mind. And we do a little meditation. I'll tell you about, I'll be just sort of saying, this is the way this feels to me. And you just see what it's like for you. And then we can have a little chat about it afterwards, maybe. So yeah, if you want to close your eyes, and if you just take a couple of deep breaths, just let your system settle down a bit. And just have a quick scan through your body and see how it feels. Do you need to change your sitting position? I nearly always want to change my sitting position. I want to sit more erect. I nearly always want to sit more erect. Like now, I want to sit more erect. And then I nearly always want to put my feet on the floor. Wherever they are, if I have them crossed, if they're 1 foot up, 1 foot down, inevitably I just want to put them squarely on the ground. And then I sort of want to, my spine just wants to sort of come away from the back of the chair a little bit and just become more erect and elongated. Feels like that's my natural shape, and that's a more natural way for me to be. And then I'm letting go of any tension in my shoulders. Letting my belly flop out. I'm always surprised that I've been holding it. I haven't realized I've been holding it. And then I nearly always want my hands to stop touching each other. So I nearly, if I have my hands together, I'll bring them out to the sides and I'll put them on my thighs. So the thing that I find interesting, particularly when I'm not having to talk, when I'm just meditating, right? But I have to talk now. The thing I find very interesting is what is actually going on? Like when I let go of that I have a body, that I have a shape, and what I just closed my eyes from. And I just go, yeah, I can still sort of feel my hands. But then if I let go of the idea of hands, then I can feel my feet on the floor. But then if I let go of the idea of feet, and I was talking about spines, but like if I let go of the idea of a spine and just really stay with the sensation minus the label. And I still feel quite close to how it was before I closed my eyes. I'm still very close to that. So I still have the sort of mental picture of the room that I'm in and the things that are in it. And if I open my eyes even a little bit, I can still see them. So I gotta check, oh yeah, that's all still there. But if I let go of that a bit and just stay more in the sensation, what's the sensation? And I let go of the idea of naming my senses. That's sight, this is sound. And I start to really kind of get a feeling of what's really going on here. Like what is this? Like, or who is this? Like, who am I in a way? What is this presence? What is this consciousness, this thing, that looks out of my eyes? And the more I drop into this, the more it starts to feel, I have a sensation of the back of the chair, but that's, a sensation, back of the chair against my back. That's just a sensation, like all the other sensations, which are, the more I focus on this, the more I let go of the shapes, the labels, that all starts to become jumbled up. It's not exactly where it was. In a way, that sensation starts to, the sensation of the back of the chair, that starts to move to the front. And then the front and the back start to change. And I can start to sort of get in touch with what I was talking about last week about where do I go? Like, where does this presence, this part of me, where does it go when I go asleep? I got the dreaming and everything. But after the dreaming, where does that go? And where was it before I came into being? Where did it come from? And then, like, this sort of, the more I go into this, the bigger it starts to feel. And my body stops feeling like a little container. It feels bigger, much bigger. Now, the great thing is that it doesn't really matter how deep I get, or how deep I feel I've got into that. I can still open my eyes, and I can be with all that depth on the inside and still be here on the outside. So if you want, you can just sort of experiment a bit with that, just opening and closing your eyes. Okay, so just stay with that if you like. If you don't have to, but you can. Okay. So the limitations of language thing was to do with, like, when I think of um, everything out here in this, my dogs, including my dogs. When I think of everything out here, like, it's easy to refer to this as outside. Inside, when I close my eyes, it's inside and outside. But then once I close my eyes and I start to meditate and I really get into that, it almost switches around for me. And it's like, because it feels bigger inside. So is inside the right word anymore? It doesn't feel like it. But then calling what I'd normally call outside, that doesn't feel right either, but it feels that way. It feels like, I'm looking into something. like I was saying last week about, it's like one of those, it's like looking into a spy hole, you know, like instead of one spy hole, it's two spy holes. And I'm kind of looking into this illusion, this very real illusion. And then when I kind of close that and I pull back, then that feels like outside. Like if I was in a corridor looking into the spy portrait, the two eyes, I'd be looking into the room. So that'd be inside. That's the way existence feels to me. Or this illusion. And calling it illusion doesn't sound like the right word either, but I don't know what other words to use. It's like, I don't like using the word illusion because it sort of trivializes it. And it's not a trivial thing. This is not a trivial thing. It doesn't feel trivial anyway. So I think that's one of the reasons I was fascinated with Doctor Who when I was younger, was the TARDIS, his spaceship or time ship or whatever. Because from the outside, it just looks like a telephone box. But then when you go inside, there's always that moment, particularly when there's a new person goes inside. And it's like this vast, huge place inside. That's the way my body feels when I go into it. And it's like when I really start to look into or wonder about where do I go when I go to sleep. Not the dreamy bit, but even dreams, like dreams are very big. They're very big. So they're all going on in here. That's why when people talk about astral traveling, I've never experienced that personally, but I have experienced visiting places in dreams. And, I work with people who are all around the world. So you could say, well, isn't that kind of astral traveling? But it doesn't feel like that to me at all, because it's all happening inside in this big space inside me. And when I was thinking about all this stuff, it's like, well, does it matter? Like, if you know it, like, if I know it and I'm okay with it and it all makes sense to me, why does, isn't that enough? And it's like, yeah, that's fine. But like, I've known that for a long time, years, and I've related to it like that for years. And I've got used to it. Initially, it was very difficult because it's a bit trippy, but I'm well used to it now. And why I think I need to talk about it, or it comes out of me to talk about it, is that I think it helps me a lot. I think it helps me a lot with what's going on now. Because as I was saying before, the only really different thing for me to do with what's going on is that it's outside, that it's actually happening in this existence / illusion, the world, I don't know what to call it, the waking world, the world I look into, that it's here. But when I look around, I do feel like being in a cinema with a lot of people who are very afraid of what's happening on the screen, too much, like too afraid, and kind of going, but it's not, we can just walk out. We can just leave the cinema. We came in to enjoy the movie, and this is a scary bit, but it's just a movie, like. So it kind of comes from that place that I talk about this kind of stuff, because it's a bit wonky, it's a bit conceptual. So yeah, part of me was like, well, why are you bothering with all that stuff? Like, isn't it enough that you know it? So it when I looked into it, that's what it was. Yeah, far ahead, Emma. Just jump in there whenever you want.
I don't have a question, but everything that you're saying brings up something to my mind. So I'm just going to share and then we'll see. But this thing of the, how do you call it, the inside and the outside, and when you were talking about it, exploring here versus out there or inside, and the exploration and the space that there is. In other words, I kept thinking of the self and the other, and how it is related to being able to feel in those different ways. And then there's a relational aspect to this, basically, that I'm saying. And to some degree, what's interesting to me as well is I believe, although that sounds like a strong statement, that really what's out there is a reflection on what's inside and vice versa. So, how, because I see a lot of things as mirroring. So, to some degree, how can you not see something, or if you can see something outside, is it because you can't see it inside? Or where is the disconnect? Where is the relational aspect between the two? Do I make sense?
I'd say I have about 50% of it. Keep going.
I know. Okay.
Keep,
Well, let's start with the first piece then. The aspect of the self and the other. There is something to some degree where I feel that this introspection of going first through the body in order to get beyond the body seems like a closer introspection of the self and go beyond the self. And then the looking outside, opening the eyes and absorbing information on the outside would be then the other. Or
okay.
do you see that completely, that has nothing, we're talking about apples and oranges?
Um, okay. Well, um, hang on. I have some visual aids. I
Okay.
think. One sec. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So this is the way it looks when I have my eyes opened. Here's me sitting on a chair in a room. Okay, behind me that looks like what, a bookcase. I drew these right a long time ago for craniosacral training. So there's a coffee table and a TV, plant, record player, chair. Okay, so this is the way my mind thinks of the room. Oh, that's a lamp over there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, my when I sort of stop, when I let go of the assumptions, like, well, I've talked before about, I don't know about the back of my head. I've never seen my face for sure. For sure. No, I don't. I've never seen the back of my head or my back. I don't know that this is really there. If I'm facing this way, I don't know that this is there. So, like, my mind thinks that I'm just in a room, and then outside the room there's another room over here and another room over there, and then there's the big planet that I live on, and so on. Right? It's a big space. But for me, my direct experience is more like, let me see if I can get this working, is when I let go of it, and I just start to really just see what is actually in my experience. It looks more like this. So just let me bring that up. Okay, that's actually what I'm experiencing. This is what I can
Eyes
see.
open. This is eyes open, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can't see the back of anything, right? So I can't see the other side of this chair, so it kind of disappears. I can't see the back of that plant. I can't see the back of the aerial on the TV, even the whatever that was, a little vase. I can't see the back of it. So it all just disappears. So for me, this is what being in a room is, what I how I experience being in a room when I don't make any assumptions. It's just this big. Okay? That's reality for me. That's the world. That's existence as the illusion. Okay? It's just that big. And it's even smaller than that because, and I think how this really started to impress itself on me was when I was treating people, because they would be lying on the, hang on, I'll get my camera back here. I'm doing some gesticulations. So the person would be lying on the table and I would have my hands under them, right? And there would be their body would be covering my hands. And I, I'd have my eyes closed and then I'd have them open again. But it was like, it was, as I would say this is their body, as I would put my hand under their body, it was like, wow, I'm actually putting my hand through existence here because I can't see it anymore. And once I can't see it anymore, I'm feeling all this incredible stuff going on in their body. It was like, yeah, if I just let go of the idea that my hand is sandwiched under their body, and if I just let go of that and just go with what I'm actually feeling, it's like I'm putting my hand through the screen of existence into something else. And it's like the other side. I'm into the other side of existence, So going back to that drawing, like for me, when I put my hand behind my head and I can't see it anymore, my experience of it is that it's gone. It goes. I mean, you can see it because you're looking at the camera, but I can't see it anymore. I don't have that experience. Now that sounds like crazy talk, I know. But for me, it's like when I let go of that, it's like so this thing that seems big is actually quite small, and everyone seems to have their own one. So it's not all like we're all sharing the same one. It's like everyone's got their own one. And if I'm talking to somebody, it's almost like they're on the other side of my little bubble and they're looking through their peepholes into this. So we're sharing that. And that, for me, that's the other. Just a long-winded way of getting back to answering, or not
No,
answering.
but it got me, sorry. No, that's great. But it got me to another question, which is in all the examples, do you know what the shared screen or even the example of the hand, you're not seeing the hand, or you're describing what you're seeing.
Yeah.
There's something though, how do you take in consideration feeling and sensation? Like this hand is here in front of me and I see it, it's part of my world here. That's how I
Yeah.
relate to the other part of my body. And then I put it here and I don't see it anymore. And even if I turn around, I don't see it. But there's a real physical sensation. There's a difference that I notice of heat, of pressure, of that tells me that something, whether it's my hand or not, I assume it's my hand. There's something in the back of
Yeah.
my head.
Yeah.
So how do you take feeling and sensation in consideration? Because I hear you a lot talking about what you're seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we do, like I hold a lot by what I see. I think it looks like everybody does. Um, because it's one of the ways that we really are. It looks like, it's what makes the world look so real and three-dimensional and have this feeling of it's big and it's, this vision, right? But sensation, and again, I think like this kind of came to me from working with people, um, because with craniosacral work, as you have you're sort of alternating between eyes open and eyes closed, and when they're closed, you're feeling a lot. I mean, I think they've done scientific studies about that. Say like when you're trying to feel the craniosacral rhythm early on, like, it's supposed to be like a really small movement. But yet when you close your eyes and you get into it and you can feel it, it's like, it's like this huge, big feeling. So from spending so much time going back and forth with my eyes open and closed, hour after day after day after year of doing that, the sensation feels like much more of an interior thing to me. I have another picture actually. Hang on. So yeah, we were talking about, we're doing this thing in other Zoom groups where we're connecting. So if you think about somebody standing like that with their arms open, okay? Now my mind would just sort of, if I drew that, you'd see my head, my shoulders, my arms out like that, okay? But what it feels like to me, hang on, let me get it, is more like that. Okay, so there's my nose. And then these are my arms. So, I mean, I drew this for other purposes, but it's not exactly as it is, but that's the way it feels inside me. And the sensation all happens inside. I don't register any sensation out here. If I touch something, yeah, I'll touch it, but the sensation is always inside my body, or what I'll call my body. But when I let go of the idea and the assumptions about the way my body is and it has a back and all this kind of stuff, then this is more the way it feels to me. So if I happen to have my hand under some person, say I have this hand under some person, it's almost like that hand disappears into this mystery, on the other side of that mystery. Like if you combine that picture with the other picture I showed you, then, one goes into the other. And I'm kind of
But
connecting with that person in here, really.
may I say something?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like this example of putting the hand underneath, this is really to me the example of a perfect fine line, because it sounds, in theory, yeah, you don't see it anymore. But in practice, because I know actually what you're talking about, this is actually very challenging to completely disappear, because actually the points of pressure are greater. And then eventually it dissolves. But I feel like that dance is much a greater in and out. Does that make sense? I don't see it disappear right away, like suddenly, because of the sensation is present.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the only thing I see disappearing is my hand, but the sensation doesn't change. Like the sensation is, I start off with the sensation of, just me, I'm not touching anything. Then I put my hand under the person and like visually it disappears, but the sensation changes and I feel the weight of the person's system. And then I start to, you know, well, probably at that stage I would have connected with them more, but let's just say, I start to feel all the different things that are going on in their system. And um, those sensations become magnified. In fact, the fact that I can't see it anymore, I'm not distracted by the visual, and because craniosacral work is so subtle, that helps as well. Because if I could see, if it was, it was like some very visible kind of bodily rhythm, that would be distracting and be like, oh yeah, this is what I'm seeing is, confirming what I'm feeling with my hand. But because it's so subtle, you can't see anything. It does nothing on the surface changes. And yet, if I have my hand under a person, it's like there's huge changes. I mean, I've had times when I've been, say, at someone's head, and like I'll be working with their sphenoid, and I might have my eyes closed, and suddenly, like when my eyes closed, like there's these huge, like complicated movements that I'm feeling, and I might open my eyes and kind of go, do I have my hands, like have my hands moved around? Have I got them like this on the? And they haven't. Nothing's happened. But like inside, it's like big carnival's going on. So I register all of those in the same place. It all happens inside. So, like, the only way I can make sense of that is, um, or what I've made sense of it to myself so far is that we're connecting. You know, we're connecting um, in back here, wherever back there is. You know, that like this kind of what feels like a sphere or a very much smaller thing than the big world, that, you know, as the person comes closer to me and they lie down and I put my hands on them, then, you know, they've come from their side of it in their thing, their little experience, their bubble, and my bubble connect. And we have a communication through it, you know, through it in the way that we're having a communication now, but then also back in the mystery as well. That's where all the craniosacral work happens anyway, in my experience. So I find all that helpful. I find it helpful
Yeah,
because,
sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead.
No, I would say that the next thing that I'm interested in is what's the relational aspect between the two.
I don't understand what you mean. What do you mean by
Well,
relational? What's
there's
the bit?
something about the life is, you know, when you're sitting with the image that you gave, where you can see the TV and everything, then there's your vision, and then there's like that you close your eyes and you go out of existence, right? So there's opening the eyes and seeing what's in front of you, and then what you cannot see you consider out of existence, correct?
Well, I just don't assume it's there.
Right. Okay. And
Like I'm
then you
trying to get
close your
away from the,
eyes.
I'm trying to get away from this in existence, out of existence
Oh,
thing,
yeah,
because
yeah.
it doesn't really, you know, I think I got it from Barry Long,
Okay.
and it
Yeah.
made sense to me. And then I think I've just been saying it, you know, because when I really looked at it, it was like, what does that actually mean? You know, what, you know, and it's actually more nebulous than that, you know, like
Right.
it's not as clearly defined, because just because I close my eyes doesn't mean I'm gone.
Right.
But
So
in a,
it's in that aspect, the relational aspect to it, meaning that there is something that, yeah, you're going, you know, let's explore and go in the space within the body and move beyond that. But there's really something to the fact that your body is still here.
yeah, but I keep going back to dreamless sleep when I'm gone, like, and then it's that thing about what is the I, you know, that's gone. What's that? You know, what is the I that who am I talking about? I know who I'm talking about, but really, who am I talking about? You know, like, it's what, where's that? Where does that go? Like, it's a long time. Like, if we're into time, because time is very much a here, out here thing, right? Like, I don't know, what is it? What's dream to sleep? I think it's like 4 hours, something like that, 3 or 4 hours. That's a long time to be just gone, you know? It's like, where do I go? And why do I feel good when I come back from there? You know, like, what actually, I know they have measured sleep and all that kind of thing, but I haven't come across anything as a really good explanation for sleep. It shouldn't really, you know, really, why do we sleep? Like, why do I need to sleep? You know, it doesn't, it doesn't add up, you know? Why do I
Have
need
you
to
read
drink?
that book, Why We Sleep? No,
No, I haven't, no.
I haven't either.
No, but I've, you know, I've read different, you know, theories on it, and, you know, there's very, you know, they measured the microchemistry of your brain, and it does all this, and oh yes, it's the computer resetting and all that kind of stuff. It never really rings. It never kind of, I've never heard anything that's made me, that's not to say I won't, but I haven't yet heard anything that's made me go, oh, okay, that's what's going on. Because to me, it's a very mysterious thing. And it's something about, like, also seeing someone who I've known and then who's died and seeing their body, you know, like, I've, that's happened a few times. And, like, you know, because of the craniosacral thing, like, if I put my hand on them, it's such a different thing to put your hand on a body that's not long, you know, there's nobody in anymore. It's such a different thing. So it's like, well, what's gone? Like, I mean, it's that thing of, what is it, 7 grams? There's only 7 grams difference in the weight, like, or whatever. Other than that, they can't tell you the difference between why something is alive and what's not. So, why I'm saying about, in existence, out of existence, there is something right there, because like when I sleep, I go deeper and deeper, and then I'm gone. So I don't have a body when I'm asleep. I don't no experience of that. I don't have a personality. I don't have any of that stuff. It's just gone. And yet I manage to come back most days. Most mornings I'm back. It's like my eyes open. I'm like, okay, here we go again. So there's going to sleep, I think, is a very good something to reflect on, because it starts very out here. I'm thinking about all the things that I think about. Close my eyes, it's dark. So there's that one sense gone, but I still feel my body, and I can hear things. But slowly that changes. Why does it change? Like, why does it suddenly become a dream? Why does that happen? And then why does the dream just, poof, it's just gone? I mean, it's going to happen. Well, it's like 9 o'clock here. It's going to happen for me in a couple of hours, and it's going to happen for you at whatever length of time. And I just find that I just find it very telling about, you know, um, that this is not so real as it appears, you know, and that is it's great, and it's like, well, there are things that are significant in this, like love, communication. They seem really important to me, because it continues, like as I go into sleep, I'll be having communication in my dreams with people. I'll be having things out. I'll be having all sorts of experiences, what I'd call, if I was awake, what I'd call experiences. They're all going on in my dreams as well. But at some point, it's just gone. And like, that is like a big, unavoidable, monolithic thing inside me, that it just all goes, you know? This thing that when I'm awake, thinking about things, and I'm, talking about consciousness and self exploration and all this kind of stuff, that's all gone. All the things I think are important go every night. I mean, I think it's hilarious in a way, um, but really significant. It's made me sleepy just talking about all that stuff. Um, I will say that I do relate to my body much more from the inside than the outside. Meaning, if I get any like tightnesses or strange sensations or anything like that, I think of it much more from the inside, rather than kind of thinking about it from the outside in. You come on there, Kathy. You're going to say something, or did you just? I don't know why your camera come on there.
No, I just unmuted myself. I realised I was still on mute, and I thought maybe you could hear the birds carrying on outside.
Oh, I can hear them. It's lovely. Yeah. So yeah,
Um,
yeah. Go ahead.
I just wondered whether are we meant to know?
Um. Well, that's a big
No.
question, because
Yeah.
it presupposes that there's some other thing, you know, like
Yeah.
there's some other higher authority, that you know is running the show.
Yeah.
And in one way, I think it's like, again, up against the limitations of language. I think there is a bigger thing at work, but I don't think it's a higher thing. I think I'm part of it, and it's part of
Mm,
me.
mm,
And it's a bit like the question, this thing about, I talked about in my book, why do we get sick, why do we get better? And it's something that I've come across a lot with people. They've got physical problems, you've got symptoms that are caused by just physical problems. I fell down a flight of stairs. I was in a car accident. I hit this chair or whatever. So something happened to my body. Trauma was, locked into that part of my body, but it's just at that level. And then if that's all it is, it just releases. It's great. Then underneath that, it's like there's emotional stuff. So that's like the physical stuff is me and my environment. Something happened to me. Emotional stuff is me and somebody else. My dad said this to me. My mother said that to me. So there's emotional trauma or a thing that happened, and that's where the root cause of it is. And then that prints out physically. And then there's this other stuff below that that's deeper than that. And that's down to between me and me. And that's where that kind of question is, of this question that the person is working out in their life, or I'm working out in my life. Excuse me. So when you sort of say, well, maybe we're not supposed to know, it's kind of I think of it in that kind of way. It's like, I often wonder about the themes in my own life and what I'm trying to figure out about myself. And because I've had the experience of being on both sides of it, where I've worked with people, and it's kind of obvious from the outs, it's easier to see stuff in other people than it is in myself. So it's like I could kind of go, yeah, it's in that realm, and then they might be talking about it, and you kind of have a sense of it, So there's kind of cliches of, the person who's really powerful but is living a really small life that's not expressing their power, and their life is just ground to a halt because of that, and they have got sort of those kind of symptoms like chronic fatigue, or just the sort of symptoms that just put their life on pause. Those kind of things are easy to kind of see from the outside, and I would kind of go, well, I have a feeling it's in that area. I mean, I wouldn't be saying this to them because it's none of my business, but all I ever sort of felt to say was that it's deeper than emotional. And because that's where even the craniosacral work, that's where I would work, is in that area anyway. So from like, I've had people come up to me after reading the Why Do We Get Sick, Why Do We Get Better book and go, oh, I know what my question is. And I go, well, that's great. But from me, and my understanding of it and how I've experienced it, is it doesn't work like that. It is the holding this kind of paradoxical thing of wondering, but then not going insane because you never get an answer. You never get a clear answer. Because I have a feeling that it's the sort of thing that you wonder about and that unfolds throughout your whole life. That's the way it feels to me anyway. So this thing about wondering about where I go and what, where I was, where was I before I came into being, and where do I go at night when I sleep? That's a similar kind of thing. It's like, I think it feels important to, it doesn't even feel like an inquiry to me, like a kind of, I wonder what is going on. It's more a kind of awe and wonder of like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, where do I go? Where do I come from? Like, what is this thing? Like, what even is this thing that's talking to you? And what is this thing that's happening right now? Like, just being with that, which is, you see that in babies' faces. They're very with that. They're just kind of looking around like, I'm like, I know that look. I know that feeling. It's like, what's happening? Where am I? And not in a distressed way, but just like the wonder of consciousness, I suppose, being conscious, and the gift of being able to sort of self-reflect. Because like, I've got dogs. You heard them. I look in my dog's eyes, and there's something going on there. Like, there's a consciousness going on there, but it just seems different. Like, it's like I'm glad I have the capacity to wonder about these things. Like, animals to me seem like they're just really in the moment. They're just totally in the moment. It's like, I put this thing up on Instagram, I think it was, and it was like your dog's calendar, and every day was the best day of my life, And I thought, yeah, that's brilliant. Every single day was the best day of my life. And I think that's great. But I'm not a dog, so I do have this capacity to reflect on it. And I think I'm grateful for that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm also a bit rebellious. Like whenever I kind of have that thing of probably being raised, coming up through Catholicism, I just have this thing. If anyone tells me I can't do something, particularly stuff that's really important, I'll just be like, no, 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 no. You can't tell me that. Yeah, I will rebel against that really, almost automatically. So yeah, I don't know if that's just the way it is for me about it. But I mean, other people have very strongly held beliefs about other things, and for them, it's like, no, we're not supposed to know that. That's fine, but that doesn't work for me. Are we going to ask you something else?
No, I wasn't going to ask. I was just going to say if we didn't have that, it's like I suppose drive isn't the right word, but that force, that something, that movement of wonder that drives us all, that always that questioning why, the big our question. If we didn't have that, yeah, I don't know what we'd do.
Well, I know a lot. Most people don't. Like most people don't want to even talk about this stuff. There's more people do it now, but a lot of people don't. And they get quite uncomfortable if you bring it up. They're like, oh Jesus, who cares? Like I've seen that happen regularly. Like most people. And probably this is what religion, part of religion has come from, is that it's you don't have to think about it. Like just oh yeah, what's all that other stuff about? Just tell me. Oh okay, yeah. So God said this, that, and okay, great. Now I know, and I don't have to think about that anymore. I just read the book and go and do the things. Not trivializing religion. I'm just saying I can understand how it would remove the uncomfortable feeling of wondering about that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, but yeah, if you've got it, like if you've got that thing to wonder about that sort of stuff, then you do have it and you will. Like I've kind of had this my whole life, so I've often it's there's not a lot of people who do have it, so it can leave you feeling quite alone and out of step with everybody else. I think I was saying a bit about that last week as well. But so yeah, so for me, it's always like it took me a long time to figure out that other people didn't have it. Not everybody had it, and that's from having lots of conversations where people are like, who cares? Why do you care about that? And yeah, so.
Yeah, when you talked about that last week, it's like, is that why I felt so different when I was a kid? It just really made sense. It just like really dropped in. It's like, because to me, everyone just looked like, I don't know, I felt like I was fearful, but I didn't know why. And I never felt like I fitted into my family. And even like sitting at school, it's like, who are these people? Like, what's going on? It's like I never felt like, just like, and when you said that last week, it's like, now it just made sense.
Yeah. I mean, fully. Well, like, for me, like I walk around, and in a way, I wouldn't put it in these words, but most of the time I'm like, oh yeah, it all looks so real. Like going back to that thing about what that person was saying about Barry Long, like that, I'm with that very, frequently. And I'm talking to people who are not coming from that place at all, who are like, this is very real, this is very serious. And there's a lot of that going on at the moment. This is very serious things happening. And they are serious. But for me, it's like, yeah, but why, if it was really serious, why does it disappear every night? Like I just, like I'm quite, let's certainly, like apart from this kind of work and talking to people, this like just day to day people I meet on the street, um, like apart from my wife, there's nobody I talk to about this stuff, and I'm quite happy with that. Like, I've quite come to be okay with all that. But back in the, when I was starting to really come into this kind of thing, I really wanted to talk to other people about it. And that's probably what led me into all the different things that I got into, which kind of ended up with Barry Long. But yeah, like it was like I used to love that. It's like, oh, great. I had this idea that it'd be great to, because when Barry used to have the master session, which was in Australia, that was like about 400 people for 3 weeks. So I was like, oh, this will be brilliant, it'll be lovely. All these people who are truth seekers and, all this, they are all on the same wavelength. But I found that it wasn't the case at all. It was just like groups of people or people are people. Like they've got their own stuff going on. So all the things that were, that would be going on, say, in the local golf club, it all went on there as well. Just the spiritual version of it. So you have the spiritual jealousy, the spiritual one-upmanship, the spiritual, you know, stuff. It was all anything that goes on anywhere else. It all went on in that kind of community, and in a way, that was really not heartbreaking, but it was disillusioning because it was like, oh, there's that idea of like that I'm not on my own with this. That there are other people I can, share this with, or that we're on the same wavelength. I was kind of disabused of that idea. That really, while it's, I suppose why I've come to this thing of like communication is such a difficult thing, because for me anyway, it looks like when I talk about this little bubble that I'm in, and I don't mean that I'm in a bubble separate from the world. It's like I don't think about this too much because I want to enjoy the movie, but like it doesn't feel like much bigger than my arms can reach out and touch, and then I start to put my hands through it, and it's like, because you've probably had this where you've talked to other people and you can just tell by them that they're in a different reality. Like you're talking to them and they're saying stuff, but like if you met somebody who believed really strongly that all um, let's say if it's a man, if you believe that all women were not to be trusted, in fact all people were not to be trusted, let's say that, and that you have to, it's a sort of world where everyone's out to get you, and you have to defend yourself, and you have to, it's dog eat dog, and they really believe it. And you can see, like, when they start to tell you about their life, that they've had all these experiences that back that up, and that even if you sort of travel along with them for a little while, you can see them. You walk into the same restaurant that they do, and they get picked on, and they get shortchanged, and you just kind of, wow, that's like, it's real for them. And for me, it's like this sense of they're in their own bubble. We could communicate in some way, but my experience, my little bubble, and what I lived through is different. And that this was what I was saying last week about that there's no third reality. It's not like your truth, my truth, and the real truth. It's just your truth and my truth, or your reality and my reality. And they're not the same. We're not, there's no greater other reality kind of thing. I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but was it a tangent? Was that what I was talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good.
It's all good. Good.
Yeah.
Good. So I just want to leave you with, you're doing great. uh, Tell that to everyone that you get a chance to. It's very, I've you had a chance to try that on anybody? It's great.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
it's good, isn't it?
Yeah. So good.
It's great. And have you tried it in the mirror?
Can't say I have.
Yeah, try in the mirror. It's great. Yeah, everyone needs to hear that. So if you're watching this, you're doing great. You really are. Okay, so thanks very much. And yeah, see you next time for another Zoom group.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
Bye.
All
Thank
right, bye.
you. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye.